Good evening. My name is Pat Martin. I'm with the Bloomington Monroe County Metropolitan Planning Organization. Welcome to our public meeting number 3 tonight for the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We have 2 representatives from Burgess and Nyepel, Columbus office here tonight to do the presentation. And then following that presentation, we'll take question and answer from anybody in the audience and also online. And then after those questions have been responded to, we will switch over to presentation on the draft fiscal year 2026-2030 Transportation Improvement Program, also for the Bloomington Monroe County Metropolitan Planning Area. And so with those introductions, I'll turn it over to Erin. Thanks.
Thank you. So yes, I'm Erin Grushon. I am a senior transportation planner with Burgess and Nyepel, and we've been working closely with the Bloomington Monroe County MPO over the last year or so on developing this updated long-range metropolitan transportation plan for the region. So today we are going to share with you our draft plan. This is kicking off a 30-day public review period before we would come back in January and work on going through the adoption process with the MPO. So I'm going to start out by telling you kind of what information is in this presentation, what to expect. We'll talk a little bit about the overall process of updating the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, including some more information on what exactly a Metropolitan Transportation Plan is. We'll review some demographic characteristics of the county, talk about some of the public involvement that we did while we were developing this plan, and review the vision and goals that were developed, performance measures, and then also highlight some of the recommendations that came out of this planning process. So, in Metropolitan Transportation Plan, you know, obviously you see the 2050, so it's a long-range plan. That's our horizon year. It is actually something that is required by federal legislation. Federal regulation requires all metropolitan planning organizations to develop a long-range multimodal transportation plan that looks out at least 20 years or more. This one looks out over 25 years. And some of the things that there are a number of requirements in the federal regulations that kind of dictate what kind of information needs to be in that long-range plan, but there's also some flexibility where you really can work with the local community to make sure that it reflects what the needs are. And so hopefully you'll see that here as we walk through the process that we did, how we have met these federal requirements, but also reflected a lot of what we've been hearing locally, what the priorities and needs are in this region. So one of the things that we wanted to highlight is that public and stakeholder engagement really does carry on throughout the entire process. As we mentioned, this is our 3rd public meeting. In addition to the public meeting, we'll talk a little bit about the public survey that we did as part of this process. And there were ongoing updates to the MPO committees as well while we were going through this process, and some stakeholder meetings and focus groups that we conducted over the last year. So we identified the existing conditions. What is the current transportation system? How does it function? Identify needs. Are there gaps in the system? And then we go from there to really looking at project development and evaluation and recommendations and pulling those into the draft plan itself. So the study area is all of the urbanized area of the city of Bloomington. Also includes Ellettsville, so it's the urbanized area within Monroe County. If you see on this slide here, that kind of pink outline is the metropolitan planning area. So a lot of our analysis did include the entire county, just because that's the data that we had. So we looked at data for the whole county, but the actual project recommendations are within that study area that you see there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the existing conditions analysis that we did early on in the process. And some of the reasons why we do this demographic characteristics analysis. We pulled data from the census or the American Community Survey. This really does help us understand who lives here, who the transportation system users are in the county, and how their needs might be income. And so, for example, we looked at information related to income. So this map here on the right-hand side shows where the census tracts with the highest proportion of low-income households are, and those are the darkest blue that you see there. And then on the left, what's showing is the kind of that over half of households in Monroe County, housing and transportation costs. Oh, I'm sorry, I got my statistic wrong. For the average for Monroe County is that housing and transportation costs account for over half of a household's budget. So one of the reasons why we like to point this out is because we know with all of the different transportation systems and mode choices that people have, operating a personal automobile can be the most expensive. So there's really an opportunity to help address equity and to provide more opportunities for people to be able to get around if we can reduce those transportation costs by allowing for other modal options. Things like bicycling, walking, transit, all of that can really help address some of these equity concerns. So we also looked at population information as far as population projections and historic trends. The county has been growing at a pretty moderate rate, around a little over 2.3%. The projections that we found anticipated adding about 23,000 people to the county. So that's not just the city, that's the whole county by 2030. And that is around a 2.2% rate of increase, which is faster than the state of Indiana. And so kind of taking into consideration how that might impact, different transportation needs around the region as well. And let's see, we also looked at information around how people are currently commuting. So this information you can get out of the American Community Survey. It asks how people typically get to work. And right now, based on the ACS data that we pulled, around 60% of people in the county primarily commute to work by driving alone. And then around, let's see, and there are some like breakdowns there and the data that we included that shows that for driving alone, there's a higher percentage of males that drive alone to work as opposed to females. But then this data shows that females are more likely to be using public transportation. So that's about close to 6% of females compared to 1% of males. And then also, I think because this was from 2022 American Community Survey data, so I don't know if this is still the case, but a pretty high proportion of people were working from home at the time. So over 15% average, but almost 20% of females, over 12% of males were not commuting. So, and then we also looked at information around access to vehicles and found that a majority of the households do have access to at least one vehicle, but there still are plenty of households that have no vehicles. And also, there are quite a few households that only have one vehicle available. And that's not per person, that's per household. So that means there could be a lot of people that are sharing vehicles to try to meet their daily transportation needs. And then I'm sure it's not surprising to anyone as far as educational attainment, being in a university community, that the level of education here in this MPO region is very high, higher on average rates of college degrees and all of that than compared to the state of Indiana as a whole. So I mentioned earlier that we conducted a public survey as part of the plan development process. That was conducted online, and it was available between February and August of 2024. We received over 200 responses on the survey, so I think it was around 206 total responses. and I wanted to highlight a little bit of what we heard through that survey. Some of this is pretty consistent, actually, with the American Community Survey data I was just reviewing, which is interesting since we only had a sample of 200 people. But what we heard was that most people, which was around 60%, drive daily, which is similar to the rate that we got from the American Community Survey. Most people who responded rate congestion as moderate, and commutes are relatively short. So over half of the people that responded commute less than 5 miles. Some of the other information that we were asking about was around how different types of infrastructure improvement could impact mode choice. So we asked questions related to, if there were pedestrian facility improvements or bicycle facility improvements or transit improvements, would they use those types of modal options more? And for biking, almost 60% of people said they would be very likely or likely to bike more with bicycle facility improvements. Transit was about 40% of respondents saying they would be likely or very likely to use transit more. And then 42% of people said they would be more likely to walk more if there were pedestrian facility enhancements. And we also asked how safe people feel while using different modes of transportation. So most people who responded said that they feel safe driving and walking, but a pretty large number, over 40%, said they feel unsafe riding a bicycle. And one of the, so as we were going through this process and moving from existing conditions to identifying needs and then starting to develop those recommendations, we really wanted to keep these goals at the forefront of what we were doing. These goals are based on the input we are hearing from the community through the survey, also through the public meetings that we had and focus groups that we held. So the vision for this planning process is that the plan identifies core transportation goals. Oh, sorry, that's not the vision. I was reading that and I realized that's not the goals that the plan is built around are safety, transportation equity, climate change, mobility and accessibility, transit, preservation and fiscal responsibility, and community. And I'm not going to read all of the text up there under each of those, but those details are in the draft plan, and we have information available up here, and then also at the end of the slideshow to show you where you can access the full plan document online. So one of the things that is as part of the federal requirements for the MPO, long-range transportation planning, there has to be a performance-based component of it. The bipartisan infrastructure law requires performance-based planning and kind of requires working towards meeting performance goals in 7 key areas. Those are safety, infrastructure conditions, system reliability, freight movement, environmental sustainability, and reduced project delivery delay. These are similar to, I don't know if we'll go into detail on these for the Transportation Improvement Program, but you'll see the same goals and performance metrics identified for both the MTP and the TIP that we'll talk about later. And so finally, kind of wanted to talk about the recommendations piece. And I will, since we're doing a combined public meeting with the TIP, I won't go into detail on these short-range projects here, because these are also projects that are included in the Transportation Improvement Program that Pat's going to talk about here in a minute. But what some of the process that we went through in identifying the recommendations that go beyond this initial 5-year period, what we were calling the illustrative recommendations in the plan, is that we had one-on-one stakeholder meetings with the city of Bloomington, with Monroe County, with Ellettsville, the town of Ellettsville, and we also had some coordination that the MPO did with NDOT. So in addition to these 5-year short-term transportation improvement program recommendations, there are also a number of additional illustrative longer-term recommendations included in the draft plan itself. And they cover issues around roadway, bicycle and pedestrian needs, transit needs, multimodal systems there. And where we are in the project schedule is we're nearing the end. We've been working on this for about a year. This is our final public meeting, and we were looking to finalize the plan itself next month and work through the MPO to get it adopted. And we're really interested in hearing your feedback on the draft plan itself. We want to know what your thoughts are. So we have some paper comment forms with us here today that you can fill out and leave with us, or you can email the staff directly with comments, or you can also mail your written comments to the MPO's address here on the screen. And then we have a QR code that'll take you directly to the online version of the document, where you can read everything in more detail. Oh, that one's our exhibit. So that's the conclusion of my presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if people have specific questions, either in this public forum, or I'll be sticking around until 7, so you can always ask questions later as well, too. But does anybody online or in the room currently have questions? Any questions online? No?
You can tell them to raise their hand if they have any questions.
Okay.
Or unmute themselves.
Yeah, if you are online, you have a question, you can use the raise your hand feature or just unmute yourself and speak out.
We also ask that you turn on your camera if you have comments online, and state your name. And this is for the record, since we're recording the entire process. Questions from the audience? Anybody? Want to come up? Okay. If not, we'll transition then into the Transportation Improvement Program. And then we will also have question and answer period after this. And then the entire team, consultant team, and ourselves, Katie Gandhi and I, will be here for the duration until 7 o'clock tonight, so you can ask questions then too, for that matter. Okay. Sorry. Trying to share this. I'm sorry. One moment while we set up here. Fiscal year 2026-2030 Transportation Improvement Program. Some of you, most of you, I should say, are familiar with what the Bloomington Monroe County Metropolitan Planning Organization is. MPO legislation was established in the 1960s. Bloomington Monroe County became a metropolitan planning organization. This is a population over 50,000 in the urbanized area. That occurred in 1982. Oops, I'm sorry. Let me start again. Okay. Start from the beginning. Fiscal year 2026-2030 Transportation Improvement Program. Many of you out there know what the Metropolitan Planning Organization is, what it involves. This established, our MPO was established in 1982. by an act of the governor. This is a population over 50,000. Our urbanized area is approximately 120,000. The MPO involves transportation policymaking, planning. It's required for all urban areas over 50,000. Ensures federal investment spending and occurs in a comprehensive, coordinated, and continuing process. And it's responsible for ensuring that federal funds are spent in a way that supports the region's socioeconomic and environmental goals. The slide shows you that we're first of all, our priority is establish a fair and impartial setting, transportation operational capital investments and alternatives. We're required to maintain a long-range transportation plan, or called a Metropolitan Transportation Plan, by the Federal Highway Administration and the U.S. Department of Transportation. We also required to develop every 2 years a transportation improvement program. This program can be a 3-year to a 5-year program. We've selected to develop a 5-year program, which gives a better vision for where the investments are being made and where the needs are in the urban area. And then we also involve public residents and key affected subgroups through a public participation plan on an ongoing basis. Transportation Improvement Program is a federally required document developed in cooperation with the local planning agencies. Local planning agencies here are shown on this slide: Monroe County, City of Bloomington, Bloomington Transit, and Rural Transit. We're also involved with citizens outside of these jurisdictions in terms of answering questions and providing information. The metropolitan planning area, or the urban area is really more important. That's in the green highlighted in this map. The green was where the urbanized area boundary map was finalized in July of this year. The metropolitan planning area, which extends slightly farther, metropolitan planning area shows the area anticipated to be urban within the next 20 years or so. Again, this was finalized in summer of this year, 2024, by the U.S. Department of the Census. Our Transportation Improvement Program development and approval schedule. This details out exactly the process we're following right now. We issued a call for projects with the local LPAs in August of this year. Project request application deadline was roughly a month later. We went through initial reviews of these requests and project reviews, fiscal constraint issues, discussed those in October, followed by a week later incorporation of the statewide transportation improvement programs, which we received roughly around the 23rd to the 24th of October. We presented all of this combined together to the Policy Committee, the Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Committee, in November. Legal advertisements for the public comments were published in the Bloomington Herald Times on November 10th and November 11th. November 10th, the 30-day public comment period began. This is where we accept all comments in written form, so that way we can document those comments to the Indiana Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration, and also the Federal Transit Administration. Today, December 5th, we're having our public input meeting. 30-day public comment period will close on December 9th, next week. We'll receive review comments, which we've submitted the document, the draft document, to the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and the Indiana Department of Transportation. We hope to receive those review comments back sometime before the end of December. Then after we receive those comments, we'll revise the draft document into a final document with recommendations. That would occur on January 29th. Approval by the Policy Committee then is tentatively anticipated by February 14th, just in time for Valentine's Day. Federal Highway, Federal Transit, and NDOT approval letter for the Transportation Improvement Program is anticipated sometime in March of 2025. And then the program, the fiscal year 2026-2030 Transportation Improvement Program would then begin July 1st of 2025. This slide shows the authorized Federal Highway Administration program funding levels. These are draft. There's some discussion going on about these because these numbers were assigned to us by the Department of Transportation, and they're actually August of 2022 numbers. Very preliminary. We currently do not have final numbers, so that way we can go about achieving fiscal constraint. I'll briefly go down each. You can see, well, across the top first, fiscal year 26, 27, 28. Then fiscal year 29 and fiscal year 30 are considered illustrative, subject to change depending on reauthorization of the Surface Transportation Act by Congress. The programs, the Federal Highway Administration programs we have here are the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. This is our largest source of funding. This is assigned to us based on a per capita basis of our urban area population. That assignment was made on the 2020 census also. Highway Safety Improvement Program is the next category. You can see that's roughly around $600,000 a year. Transportation alternatives, this is for bicycle, pedestrian, non-motorized types of investments. Those actually are somewhere around $397,000 or $400,000 a year. We have a category called a Section 164 penalty. This is $135,000, $136,000 a year. These are eligible for Highway Safety Improvement Program projects only. CRP stands for Carbon Reduction Program. Any project involved in carbon reduction programs such as car sharing, van pooling, car sharing, or transportation alternative projects qualify for these fundings. These are roughly $346,000. PROTECT stands for environmental protection. This would be erosion control or anything that would benefit the environment in eligible categories. Surface Transportation Block Grant Group 3 funds. Previously, Monroe County had been the recipient of these funds. We do not have any of these funds anticipated over the course of the next 5 years. Total program then of total funding available here is roughly $4,758,761. You'll notice a dip in fiscal year 2027. That comes about because the Surface Transportation Block Grant funds drop down to a zero. The reason for that drop is the fact that the city of Bloomington sought a loan, an advanced loan with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization for the First Street project to achieve construction and completion of the First Street project, a priority for the Hopewell neighborhood. That agreement was executed a year and a half ago, so therefore there's a payback in fiscal year 2027. That only affects that single year of 2027. All the other years remain flatlined to this point in time. Authorized program funding levels. We wanted to note here there are no prior year rollover of funds. In other words, funds you have, you must spend it within a specific fiscal year. The adjustment of the Transportation Improvement Program, you can adjust the current Transportation Improvement Program fiscal year 2024-2028 projects if needed into the new program. New projects are added for fiscal year 2029 and 2030. Those are the illustrative years again. And again, illustrative. Requirements for all the projects. We must have construction contract letting dates. We must have Indiana Department of Transportation, what are called designation numbers, or these are called project identification numbers. Those are assigned by the Indiana Department of Transportation, used for project tracking, which is on a constant basis and also on a quarterly basis. Construction engineering phase costs are required. Highway safety improvement projects must prioritize low-cost systemic funding projects for eligibility. Transportation alternative projects require additional application documentation. We must have public comment period and public meeting requirements for all projects in the program. The fiscal year 26-2030 Transportation Improvement Program request form is required to submission to our staff, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, for all projects, including public transit projects. Highway Safety Improvement Program projects, again, low-cost systemic projects. There are 25 different eligible categories. Transportation alternative application must have supporting documentation for safety, mobility, connectivity. All new projects that are eligible must complete a complete streets evaluation scoring. Safety projects are easily documented in that process. Now I wanted to quickly go through Monroe County, the applications submitted by, or project applications submitted by Monroe County for fiscal year 2026-2030. The first project is Old State Road 37 South and Dillman Road intersection improvement. That proposed improvement would consist of a roundabout. This shows preliminary engineering and other activities beginning in fiscal year 26, carrying on in 27 with right-of-way acquisition, and then construction in fiscal year 28. Monroe County next has 2022, 2026, and 2027, 2030 bridge inventory inspections and inventory, safety inspections and inventory. These are mandatory under state statute. You can see those include all fiscal years. Rockport Road Bridge Project. This is a modernization replacement of bridge number 308 down on Rockport Road. Next is Dillman Road Bridge number 83. This is immediately west of State Road 37 in Monroe County. The next one is Eagleson Avenue Bridge over the Indiana Railroad. This is on the Indiana University campus. That project is already underway in terms of preliminary engineering design, right-of-way, temporary right-of-way acquisition, and then construction on that would begin in fiscal year 26. And then finally, a special award, which just came in a week ago. This is a special highway safety improvement program project award for Monroe County for Fairfax Road, addressing pavement friction issues down in that section of the project. The braces that we have here, TBD stands for the project number. That shows that it's to be determined yet. It has not been assigned. All the others have numbers that have been assigned to them already. Next, we have the City of Bloomington, fiscal year 2026-2030 Transportation Improvement Program projects that were submitted. First one is the High Street intersection modernization and multi-use path. This project is already under development for preliminary engineering. Right-of-way acquisition will begin shortly once the design is approved. They're looking at construction in fiscal year 2026. Next project is Crosswalk Safety Improvements Project, Phase 4. Actually, this also is a Highway Safety Improvement Program special project that was just awarded a few weeks ago. This one would begin with preliminary engineering in 2027 and construction in 2030. Crosswalk Safety Improvement Projects, Phase 3. These are downtown crosswalk safety improvement projects. We do not have specific locations for those. Those will be identified once we get into preliminary engineering on the project. That's identified for fiscal year 2028 for construction. That will be done with 100% local money for preliminary engineering. Downtown curb ramps, Phase 5. That's also in development. That will go to construction fiscal year '26. And then a new planned improvement is the North Dunn Street multi-use pathway. This would begin preliminary engineering and design in fiscal year '26 with construction in '28. Land acquisition would be done with 100% local funds. Finally, we have what I would call two mega projects here. First one is College Avenue and Walnut Street Corridor Improvement Project, phase 1. This has been under examination with the Safe Streets and Roads for All project, safety action plan, which was adopted by the City Council last night. College Avenue and Walnut Street Corridor Improvement Project, phase 1, would begin in fiscal year '26, in other words, starting July of next year, and then go to construction sometime in fiscal year '28. The second element of that is College Avenue and Walnut Street Corridor Improvement Project, phase 2. Again, this is a brand new project. This would begin preliminary engineering in fiscal year '27, would not go to construction until fiscal year '29 and 2030. And again, I wanted to say fiscal year '29 and 2030 are both what I would call illustrative projects, illustrative project years. Next, we have rural transit. It provides transportation in the Ellettsville area and outside of Monroe County for rural transit operations. They've submitted an application for rural transit operations. This would be with Federal Transit Administration funding and local matching funding. These are for all 5 years of the fiscal year, '26, '27, '28, '29, and '30. And they've been in operation some time. This is just continuing service. Next, we have Bloomington Transit. Has a number of substantial projects here, fiscal year '26 to '30. First one is operating assistance for the fixed route and paratransit service. Obviously, you see this continuing service all the way across the board. Next item is the purchase replacement of battery electric buses, and charging equipment. This would begin in '27, '28, '29, and '30. Some of that is already underway. Some of that, the first initial acquisitions were at least 2 years ago. We had delivery just recently of additional battery electric replacement buses. This is to fulfill the goal to have a 100% battery electric powered fleet by the 2030s, mid-2030s. Also, they're seeking purchase support and maintenance vehicles for the first 3 years of the program. Purchase the B-Link replacement vehicles. These are the paratransit vehicles. Green Line design, which is an ongoing study right now for a rapid transit operational line and engineering, which would occur from Bloomington, potentially out the 3rd Street corridor to the far western urbanized area boundaries of the Bloomington-Monroe County area. Finally, the next item we have is the purchase of automated passenger counters. That's in 2028. That's a replacement of the existing ones, which will be at the end of their existing life. Next, we have the purchase of new shop equipment for a new facility. Efforts are underway in the current transportation improvement program to achieve approval for land acquisition for a new maintenance and operations facility at a location to be determined. And then efforts are also underway to achieve funding for construction, design and construction of a new maintenance and operations facility at a yet to be determined location. The next would be the purchase of furnishings for that and office equipment for that new facility sometime in 2027. And then finally, the purchase of financial management and accounting software, which is definitely at the end of existing life. That usually has a 10-year life of a 10 to a 5-year life or something like that. Now, we come to our question and comment period. I want to place this out here for anybody out in the audience, either in person or virtually. These are the different methodologies that you can public comment on. You can submit a written comment. We need records proving your comments to the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, the Indiana Department of Transportation. So you can do it. You can do it here with a written comment here at this public meeting tonight. We'll be here till 7 o'clock or until the cows go home, whichever comes first. Cows may freeze first. You can do it by email. Email it to our staff, myself and Katie Conde, directly at mpo@bloomington.in.gov, or you can do it the traditional way, the way I like it, snail mail. You can send the written comments to our Metropolitan Planning Organization, Post Office Box 100, Bloomington, Indiana 47402. Okay, with that, I'll open the floor. Well, first of all, let's take the online audience first, and see if the online audience, if anybody out there, the two individuals that we see out there, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll address those comments. And then we ask that you turn on your camera also if you have comments to make.
Nothing so far.
Okay, with no comments there, now we'll go to the audience itself. Anyone here present who has any comments they wish to make for the record, we ask that you come up to the microphone, state your name for the record, and then let us know what your comment is. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Hello, my name is Colin Nielsen. I have a bus to catch, so I'll be leaving here really quickly. But just to keep it brief, I really like that in the transportation plan that there are proposed multiple-use paths along Arlington Road and along Smith Pike as well. That would be great connections for me to visit my family who live in the Westbrook Downs area from Bloomington. So I really like those connections. And I'd also, I didn't see anything in the plan about having a connection between this the Vernal Pike multi-use path to the Karst Farm Greenway. That's also would be a vital connection and a pretty short connection to the that would complete kind of the paths from Bloomington to Ellettsville, especially because 17th Street doesn't intersect with I-69. It just goes over it, which is great for safety when cycling. Thank you.
Thank you. I might note that we received your comment in written form in an email, and we will address that. And I didn't realize there was a missing link to Vernal Pike, and the county is aware of that, and they are addressing that actively right now. So we appreciate it very much.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for the record? Okay.
Good evening. I just have a question. Well, actually, a couple of questions about the new projects that have been added. I'm Sarah Reiterband. I'm a citizen of not only the MPO, but also of the city of Bloomington. I'm curious to know if Mr. Satterley could address for us the friction project on Fairfax. I'm kind of curious about what that is and what it entails. And as far as the city of Bloomington goes, I'm curious about the Phase 1 and Phase 2 of College Avenue, Walnut Street Corridor Improvement Project. If that could be elucidated a bit more. Thank you.
I'll just share what Lisa from the county shared with us today. The high friction surface treatment on Fairfax Road is meant to improve the safety areas along Fairfax Road mainly in curve locations. The specified locations have shown a history of higher crashes along Fairfax Road, and the high-friction pavement surface would help decrease these numbers. They're going to install them in areas with geometric issues and problems according to their analysis. It's to help for safety, and in weather conditions. Let's see here. That's what I've got so far.
Similar to what they did on 446, south of the reservoir.
I have no idea what that is, Paul.
It's like a heavy grit sandpaper type surface to provide extra adhesion and curves and points.
Is there something within the pavement itself?
No, it's a treatment that goes on top of the pavement.
Like, is it, I assume we're not using recycled glass pieces that
No,
are in there.
it's
Is there, do you know
I
what?
don't know the specific material, but it's a pretty durable, sandpaper-like material that provides the extra traction.
And how rapidly does that break down as opposed to normal pavement? Do you know?
I don't know,
What
it's,
the lifespan is that we can expect from
I
that?
think it's 5 or more years, probably.
Okay. For those of you in the audience out here who can't hear this, the discussion is about the Special Highway Safety Improvement Program project award for Fairfax Road with pavement friction. Paul Satterley is here from the county.
A material, I don't have the specs with me, but I could provide those to you. But it's used throughout the state on areas that have pretty much horizontal curve and vertical curve combinations where if somebody's going a little bit faster than they should be, it helps keep them on the road rather than penalizing them and letting them shoot off the road. It provides that little bit more extra grip. And the two of the curves you may be familiar with on Fairfax are the curve and the downhill there at Shack Road. As you come into town, that's been a pretty high frequency crash location there, as well as the what I call the Sanders curve going down into the Sanders curve combination and hill there. We've had quite a few runoffs there, and we've added chevrons, curve signing, all sorts of things to help with the Fairfax Road corridor, and this is just one more step further to help reduce the number of crashes on Fairfax. So one of those projects that the state has provided safety money for projects that can be done in a quick fashion and within the existing right-of-way without buying additional right-of-way. So we're pleased to get that project, and we're hopeful it'll make a big difference there in Fairfax. So.
Just as a bit of background for the project too, the Indiana Department of Transportation held a call for projects, a special call for highway safety improvement projects. And this was in September, the first week of September. The deadline for submission was the first week of October. These were statewide competition. $50 million was made available for applications for all communities, local LPAs, and of the $50 million, Monroe County received an award, and the city of Bloomington also received an award. I think total of both projects was somewhere around $1.5 million, 1.4 million out of the $50 million for only 2 applications. The other stipulation here is that all projects do not involve right-of-way acquisition. In other words, they should be more or less shovel-ready or ready to go. Some preliminary engineering design will be required for both projects, but it's a nominal amount. And all projects must have a completion date within 2 years or less, with the emphasis on the word less. So that's the background on that one, the Fairfax Road pavement friction project, and then also on downtown curb ramps Phase 5 for the city of Bloomington. Okay, any other questions? We've dwelled on the highway projects. Any questions about Bloomington Transit operations or capital investments, or any questions about rural transit operations? Anybody?
Hi, thanks. Sam Tobin Hochstadt, member of the Citizens Advisory Committee. There's been a number of back and forths about funding for rural transit and trips that can't be funded out of federal funds for rural transit that are carried out by the Area 10 Agency on Aging. That's been supported, I believe, in this fiscal year by the Monroe County government. Has there been any consideration to funding any of that through the MPO funding, since the MPO is specifically tasked with transit in the urbanized area?
Well, the application we received from Rural Transit is for MPO operational funding within the urbanized area for all of the fiscal years. So it's within that urbanized area boundary map, which we'd previously had up. So they are eligible and intend to provide service within that urbanized area. Outside of Monroe County, we're not aware of what's happening outside of Monroe County. I mean, Rural Transit has traditionally provided service to Owen County, Putnam County, Lawrence County.
Sure. I'm thinking about outside of. I'm just talking about within Monroe County, because there was. I'm sure you know this history, but just for anyone listening, there was previously Rural Transit funded a service provided by the Area 10 Agency on Aging that provided on-demand transit service outside of the city of Bloomington, but some of those trips are between areas in the urbanized area. For example, from Ellettsville to an area outside Bloomington, but within the urbanized area, which continues to be a significant part of the urban area of Monroe County. And the INDOT decided to enforce a regulation more strictly, and so then they couldn't provide those trips with the funding they were then providing. And so it sounds like what you're saying is that the adoption of the TIP would provide that funding going forward, or is that not correct?
Well, their operation, the funding operation, would be eligible for the urbanized area. Outside of the urbanized area, no. I hope that's clear. Previously, they had funding, Federal Transit Administration funding for rural transit. And the rural transit operations were eligible as long as less than 50% of their trips were outside of the urbanized area. The accounting by the Indiana Department of Transportation Office of Transit found that more than 50% of their trips were actually within the urbanized area. So therefore, they became ineligible for Federal Transit Administration rural transit funds. somewhat complicated in a way, but yeah, they are eligible for service within the urban area. And they will continue to operate within the urban area with the funding requests that they have. We've not received anything otherwise stating that's otherwise. So yeah, they're still in business. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I want to acknowledge that we have Monroe County Highway Engineer here. We have 2 members of our Citizens Advisory Committee here, representative from from Bloomington Transit, a representative from the Indiana Department of Transportation here too, and our consultant team, and Katie Gandhi and myself. Again, we'll give one more call for online. If you have any questions online, please raise your hand and let us know, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have. So we'd say in Forrest Bueller's Day Off, anybody? 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 Okay. If not, this will conclude the formal part of our presentation. We will be here until 7 o'clock tonight to answer any questions individually. Again, we request that if you have questions or comments, please submit those either tonight with a written comment form, either for the 2015 Metropolitan Transportation Plan or the Transportation Improvement Program. You can do it with written comments tonight, email us, or postal mail to ourselves, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. You can also call us too. We are online to call. However, if you do have comments, we ask that those be written so that way we can document those with our federal and state partners. No more questions. We'll go ahead and close tonight's formal presentation. Thank you very much for attending.